Hi friends, welcome to another video of Codelligent. In this video, we will try to understand what exactly are events in .NET. So the topics which we will be covering today in this video are events with delegates, events with EventHandler delegate, passing our own custom data to events, and finally a small demo using an application, and we'll try to see in this demo how we can use the events in real time. So first of all, let's understand what exactly are events and how we can create it using delegates. So events is nothing but a mechanism for communication between objects. You might have heard the word events when you talk about UI, and where it's popular, like buttons and other controls on the UI raises some events. So whenever you work with UI, you are familiar with the click event and double click events of the button. So those are nothing but events. So it is a mechanism of having a communication between two objects. So in this case, it will be UI to some other backend class, something like that. In the .NET, we can use this concept to talk between two classes also without UI. So normally the class that sends or raises the event is called publisher, and the classes who receive this event or handle them are called subscribers. So it's kind of a publisher subscriber mode. So events, when we create, internally uses delegates. So if you are not familiar with delegates, do check out the detailed video of delegates on the same channel. I will be putting the link on this video. So event internally uses delegates. So event is declared using the keyword event. So let's see how we can use them in the code. So first of all, we'll create a sample class called demo. So in the class, we will first create a delegate. So this is how we declare a delegate. So we'll say public delegate, the return type is void, and the name of the delegate is my delegate, and it doesn't take any arguments. So when we create an event, the delegate should be already existing, so that in the events we can use that delegate. So this is how we create an event, where we say public event my delegate, and the name we give for the event is my sample event. So again, if you are not familiar with delegate, do check out the video because an understanding of delegate is very much required to understand the events. And in the same class, we are having a method which will be called from outside, and in that method we are just invoking this particular event. So let's see how that works. Suppose there is another class, for example this one on the right side, wherein we say class 1. So here we are creating an object of the demo class. From that object we will be subscribing to the events. So here you can see we are saying object dot the event name plus equal to the method in which is local to that class. Similarly, we will have one more class where again we are doing the same thing. So now for the same event, two classes have registered. So now when any class who is again using the demo class calls this method, which is raise my event, internally it invokes the event. So as soon as the event is invoked, both these methods will be called. So this is how a typical event works. So the way you can subscribe, that is plus equal to, you can also unsubscribe it by using minus equal to. This same notation we have seen when we dealt with multicast delegates. But the difference between the delegate and the event is you can use only plus equal to and minus equal to with events. Unlike in delegates, we can directly use equal to as well. But in this event, if you use equal to assign a method directly to the event, the compiler will throw an error. Now let's see how events can be handled with the EventHandler delegate. So .NET provides an inbuilt delegate called EventHandler. So till now we were declaring our own delegates and we were creating the event of that particular delegate. Instead, we can use the .NET provided delegate. So already .NET provides this signature of this delegate, which says public delegate void event handler, which takes first argument of type object, second argument of type event args. So this is a predefined structure in the .NET. So now when we create an event, we need not declare a new delegate. Instead, we can use this delegate. So we'll say public event handler and the name of the event. So this we will see in detail when we do the demo. Meanwhile, we want to see, like, if at all while raising the events, if at all you have to pass some data along with the event, then how we can do it. So now you have seen, like, there is a class called event args, so which is by default there in event handler. So there is a way we can create our own arguments. So how we can do it? We just have to derive it from the event args. So public class my arguments, and I will just extend it with event args, and here I will declare all the properties which I want to be passed as part of my data. So when you declare the event, earlier we were using public event handler. Now we can say the data type of my arguments, that is, now my event handler delegate will be taking the argument of type my arguments. So wherever you invoke this, you will be able to pass my argument type of data. So now let's see how these concepts can be put into action by seeing a small application where we will use all these concepts, and we will see how this event works in the real time. So I am in Visual Studio now, and as you can see, I have created a sample console application, and I have named my application as user processing system. So let's start with adding some classes. So first we will add a new class called user processor. So this is my class, and I'll make this class as public. In this class, first I'll create an event. So we will create public event, and instead of creating the old way, that is like using delegates and all, I'll use the internal delegate, which is called event handler. So when you say event handler, you can see here it's already existing, and I will name this event as user processor event, and I will have one method here which is public void process user. So I am expecting this method to get one name of the user and age of the user, and I don't want the users who are using this class to create objects for it. They can directly access these event and method. So for that I will declare them as static so that it is directly accessible. So now this class is ready, and now let's try to create one class. So since we will be passing this string and age every now and then, instead of passing it as two arguments, we will create one class for it. So we'll say class user args, any name we can provide. So we'll declare this as public, and as you have seen in the slides, you can use custom defined arguments with events. So for that you need to implement event args. So I'll implement event args with this class, and inside I will define whatever properties I want in my data. So I'll say string name. So this is one data which I want to pass. I will say another one as age. Yeah, so that's it. So these two data I want to pass through events. So for that I'll create this class, and here I will modify my event handler such that it takes user args. So now this event, instead of having the default arguments, I will be passing my own type of arguments. So we'll see how we can use this. Before that, we will create few classes. Maybe for example, first one is database. In this class I'll declare this as public, and in this class I will declare a method called public void save to db. So remember the default parameters of the event handler. So that is like when you see here, its first type is object, that is sender, and event args. So the same way I will declare these methods. So I will say object sender, and I will say event args e. So this is one class. So here inside this I will be saving to db. So to replicate that, I will say just a console.writeline, maybe data saved to db. Yeah, so similarly I will create one more class called maybe id card generator. In this class also I will create similar method, which is public void generate id card. Again, this should follow the same signature, that is object sender and some event args. I'll name it as e. So this class is also ready, and here also I will just replicate something like I will say id card generated. Yeah, so this is also ready, and maybe one more class I'll show it. Maybe we can use something like email generator. In this also we will have similar method. So where we say public void send email to user. Again the same signature. First one is object and the second one is event args. And here we will replicate the scenario by just a console.writeline saying email send to user. So these three classes we have created. Now what we will do is we will come to our main program class wherein we have our main method. So here what we will do is we'll create objects for these three classes. So that is database db equal to new database. This is one. Next one is id card generator id equal to new id card generator, and third one is email generator eg equal to new email generator. So these classes are getting used here. So now what we'll do is we will subscribe these classes to our user processor event. So how we can do is, since we have declared that user processor events as static, we can directly use them. So we will say user processor event plus equal to, we will say db dot save to db. So now since this follows the same arguments, the same parameter signature, we can subscribe to this particular event. So as I've told in the previous slides, like it accepts only plus equal to, unlike the multicast delegate. So if I remove this plus, immediately the compiler gives an error saying that this event can only appear on left hand side of plus equal to or minus equal to. So whereas this was allowed when we were playing with delegates. So I'll make this again to plus equal to. I will subscribe for this same event with the another class, that is our id card generator dot generate id card. Again I will subscribe for this event with our email generator dot send email to user. So now these three classes have subscribed to this one event. So now what we will do is we'll replicate a simple command line application kind of thing. So we will say write line commands accepted. So what are the commands which we are accepting? Maybe first one, new, which says add new user, and another one, to as exit. So exit or maybe close the application. So these are the two commands which we are accepting. Now what we'll do is we will say while true. So let's declare two variables here. First one is string cmd input, so that is the command input. So what I'll do is, if first one console.writeLine, I will say enter command. So I'll better say console.write, and this will accept a command. So for that we will say cmd input equal to console.readLine, so that it reads a command from the command line. Maybe we can, instead of declaring this here, we can just remove this itself, we can declare it inside. So we'll just say var. Now what we'll do is, like, we will have a check, like if cmd input dot equals, if it is exit command, then we'll break this loop. Else if maybe if we say cmd input dot equals, we have new, so that means we need to accept a new user. So that functionality will write it. Meanwhile we'll just put an else part, wherein if the command is something else, so we accept only new and exits, and we don't accept anything else. So we will say console.writeLine, we will say invalid command. Yeah, so now we have to accept a new user. So for that what we will do is console.writeLine, I'll make it console.write, we'll say enter username. So I'll just put a enter here, and then var name is equal to console.readLine. So this will read a username, and then we will again just copy this code and put it again, and we will say enter user age, and I'll take it into a age variable. So now this will be a string, so I have to just typecast it. So I'm doing int dot parse. So yeah, this is actually a bad way to do it, because if there is an invalid data, it might not be able to parse it, and it will throw an exception. So it's safe to use try parse, but still it's fine for our demo purpose. So now we have the age and a name of the user. Now what we will do is, once it is done, what I will do, I'll use the same user processor class, and I'll call the method process user. Now this guy accepts my name and age. So now if you see what happens, in this class we are just continuously asking for new user details from user. So every time he enters the user name and age and presses enter, we are calling the process user. So now process user method, if you go to that process user method, here what we have to do is, we have to just say, we have to invoke this event. So for that, first we have to create this user arguments. So we'll say user args, maybe args equal to new user args, and we'll say args dot name is equal to the name which we have passed from the main method, and args dot age equal to age which we have passed. Now our arguments are ready. So now what we have to do is simply call this user processor event, and we'll say invoke, and this takes two parameters. So now you see it's object sender and user args. So earlier by default for event handler we have seen it is event args. Now we have declared it as this, I want to pass some custom arguments, so it takes user args. So now as a sender I'm not bothered much, so I'll just pass null, and the second parameter I will pass the args. So now what happens is this args, as soon as I invoke this event, all the people who have subscribed for this will be notified. So for example, I come to database, this method will be invoked. So if you want, and now maybe on a later stage you can just convert these event args into user args also, and because it's of subtype, and if you want you can get those data here. So for example, maybe in the email generator I will change event args to user args. So here maybe I can say something like email sent to user, and the name I'll print it. So I'll say e dot name, so it will print email sent to so and so user. So this way also you can use it, or you can just simply use event args as well. Now when you come here, just run this application and see how it works. So we are just running this application. So now it says commands accepted, new, exit. First let's try some random command which doesn't exist. It will say invalid command. Now I'll say new. So now it will ask for username. So I'll say Codelligent, enter user age. So I'll say maybe like 30. Now you can see as soon as I entered this, the event was invoked, and 3 classes who were subscribed for this event were notified. So data saved to DB, ID card generated, email sent to so and so user. Now again I create one more new user. I will say maybe Thomas, and age something like 34. Again all the 3 were notified. So this is how an event works, and I can say anytime exit, it will come out of the application. So this is a simple console application based real-time scenario where we can invoke events who are subscribed for this particular event. So if any later stages, if you want, because of some reason you want to like unsubscribe, for example, maybe here we can say like I'll just replicate this. So I'll just copy paste this, and I'll say for example maybe like email sending needed. Okay, and it accepts some true false kind of thing, or maybe like to make it simple I'll say it should be a y or n kind of thing, which we normally use for console or command line applications. So email needed, so I'll say console dot read line. So I'm not doing any validations here as of now because it's like a simple demo. So I expect the user to enter y or n. So email needed will be y or n. So if at all, if the email needed dot equals, if the email needed is n, then I will say the user processor dot this event minus equal to email generator dot send email to user. So now I am unsubscribing for it. So now see, let's see what happens in this case. Enter command. So I'll say new, I'll say some Frank, and age as some 23, and email sending required is Y. So you can see all the three. Now let's see what happens if we say no. So I'll say some name called Lucy. Oh sorry, it's a command, so I need to enter new, and name I'll say Lucy. Age is somewhere around like 35, and this time email sending needed, I'll say no. Now you can see data saved to DB ID card generated, but there was no email sent. So this is how we can subscribe to event and we can unsubscribe to an event. So finally I'll say exit, so the application will end. So I hope this was clear, like this is how you use events in the real uptime applications. So any other questions or clarification, please put your questions in your comment section, so I'll try to answer them. And if you like the video, do subscribe the channel. Thank you.